Okay, so now, what we also need to understand from my personal experience is that very often when we look at the Buddhism, the image of Buddhism is so huge. Buddhism, and then the enlightened being, or you will be enlightened, or you must be enlightened. That is the example, and that looks very, very, very high. And the Buddhism looks very, 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 very big. But we must understand the differences. Like, there's a Buddhism with the culture, there's a Buddhism with the tradition, there's a Buddhism with obligation, there's a Buddhism with the system, there's a Buddhism with the Dharma. So what we need is the Buddhism with the Dharma. And that is keeping a connection to your teacher and the practice. That is your Buddhism. So make it light as possible to understand the essence of the Buddhism. If you just look at the Buddhism, the picture of the Buddhism is very big. But what we need to liberate our own mind, to find our own happiness in our own mind, is only through by the Dharma, by the teacher, by the teaching, and by the effort of yourself. Nothing more, nothing less, and that's the simplicity. So calling ourselves a Dharma practitioner, we must continue and maintain the simplicity of the Dharmic path. That is very important. So the simplicity is very important, and I am not making a new Buddhist way of practicing. Example is right there if we look back, not in the front but in the back, in the history how Buddhism started. Look at the example of Marpa, how he lived and how he maintained. Look at the example of Milarepa. And then if we look at the example of Milarepa, he didn't create a huge here and there. It was so simple. Milarepa life story is very simple and a great example and quite inspiring for most of us. He made a mistake. He admits his mistake. He understands the meaning of samsara. He understands that everything is impermanent. He couldn't resist. So he wants to find, if I speak non-traditional way, he wants to find the Buddha nature. He wants to find the meaning of enlightenment. He wants to live in the moment, through the meditation practice, through the Dharma practice. So what he does is that he goes to the Marpa, and then Milarepa receives teachings and instructions from the Marpa. And the Milarepa, he goes to his own retreat. He practices for the rest of his life. And then when he shares the quality, everything he says is beautiful. So the simplicity of how Buddhism and Dharma works is not something new that I'm inventing it. I'm not inventing it. Because by the end of the day, when you practice truly by yourself, you understand how things work. But when you never practice, you have no idea how it works. Or maybe you just follow what other people are doing. So at the end of the day, 1,000 years ago, all these great beings are still human, and we are still human. They have this Buddha nature, we have this Buddha nature. By the example of them, we must achieve the same way. If not the same way, at least we must maintain the path of the simplicity, how Buddhism started, how actually Dharma works, how Dharma actually improves us, what kind of environment that we should choose in order to have a less distraction. So what I just told you is not something new. If you think that I'm saying something new, then you must be a very modern Buddhist Dharma practitioner. But if you look at the history of the Buddhism, there's so many great examples. We must not ignore that. We must study them. We must respect them. We must encourage ourselves by seeing the great Master's story. So the order to, the way the Dharma works, it has been there 1,000 years ago. So I'm just a person who has the name of Rinpoche, and I'm just a person who's just trying to remind you. Nothing more and nothing less. And, like what he just mentioned, and it's not about, it's not about a different religion, it's not about different tradition of the Buddhism. It's not about that. It's about how the teacher works, how our mind functions, how Dharma actually improves. The example right there. So we must continue that. So, what do we need? We need teacher, we need time, we need place, we need practice, and we need experience. So that's what we need by the end of the day. But okay, so also, let me explain you one thing also. Just coming through my own experience. Most of us, when we approach towards the Buddhism, when we approach towards the Dharma practice, what do we want? That's the question. Why we came to a Buddhist? Why we became a Buddhist practitioner, or why you became a Buddhist, right? So we ask question to ourselves, okay, I want to be a Buddhist because I want to live in the moment. But most of us, we became Buddhists to ignore the reality. That's the problem. Because many of us, including myself, as a Buddhist practitioner, at the beginning, the more I practice Dharma, the more I ignore the reality. But that's not how it works also. To improve your Dharma understanding and spiritual understanding, you must and accept the meaning of reality. And once you overcome the understanding of reality, and then the Dharma will improve, the Dharma understanding, the spiritual understanding, it will improve naturally. Because most of us, we believe in miracle. That's the problem. We believe in miracle. Problem. Big problem. Big problem. It makes obstacle for us the way to teach, and for the new people, the way they understand Buddhism. Because many of the people, ordinary people, they have a problem with the miracle. They do not believe in miracle. But once we start giving teaching of the Buddhism, or talking about Buddhism, a little bit something to do with the miracle here and there, then it sounds very unrealistic. Being a Buddhist practitioner, teaching a Dharma practice is all about being realistic, being stable, and being realistic is what makes us Buddhist practitioner. Being unrealistic makes us un-Buddhist. So for all of us, we have an equal responsibility to be realistic and spiritual, dharmic practitioner, and keeping that path much stable as possible. I think that is our own responsibility. Because most of us, even myself, I ignored so many movement and so many meaning of the reality, and I believed in miracles. Such as miracle does not exist. Buddhism does not provide superstitious or miracle. Buddhism provides tool and practice to make you overcome the problem that you face in a real life. And that's how Buddhism started. Not because Buddhism actually provided a miracle. So if we be a realistic practitioner or preacher or explainer, and then people will understand more, it will be more transparent, it will be more accessible to our heart and towards our own life and mind. So I think being realistic and keeping our path stable in our dharmic path, I think that is quite important for all of us. So now we talked about simplicity, we talked about impermanence, we talked about being realistic, we talked about how Dharma actually functions towards our own mind. So now I will explain to you one more important part. And that is about living in the moment. Because when we live in our ordinary life, we want to make money, we want to be successful, first we want to get a job. Okay, first we want to get a job, and then make a lot of money, work very, very hard, and you want to gain a lot of money, and then you want to have a family. You know, that's the whole life. You know, the way we want, and we just want more and 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 more. The way we think about the life is never ending. We think like we will live 1,000 years. That's how we think. But if you practice the Dharma path like that, I really think it will be difficult to improve in your spiritual path also. Because sometimes it's not about visualizing and praying every time. Sometimes, you know, trying to understand few sentences of the great teachings of a great teacher, and try to remind yourself with a few sentences, and try to meditate along with that state. Try to live in the moment. You know, accumulating doesn't make you a great practitioner. Living in the moment will make you the example and the great practitioner. Many practitioners will believe in accumulation. Accumulating with no quality has no meaning. So accumulation towards our Dharma path and living in the moment, staying in that, and recognizing your state of mind, and also inspiring yourself with the great teacher and the great sentence of all the great masters, and reminding yourself and living in the moment, meditating 5 to 10 minutes maximum. 5 to 10 minutes. I think that is very important also. Visualization is also meditation. That is with the creation. And also meditating with no creation. I think that is also important. And so every once in a week, maybe once in every few days, try to meditate. You know, try to make yourself calm and keep your mind clear as possible, and try to make your body in the meditation posture. And if you can't, keep your mind clear as possible and try to meditate a little bit. You know, every once in a week or every once in a few weeks. I think that is very important for all of us, because we never live in the moment, we live in the future. Our mind lives in the future, that's the problem. Why we became Buddhist practitioners is because we want to live in the moment, we want to recognize the Buddha nature, we want to recognize our own positive quality. That's why we became a Buddhist practitioner, not because we want to live in the future. If we live in the future, then there's no difference living as other ordinary life. You know, so calling ourselves a spiritual practitioner means living in the moment, seeing your mind, living in that state, inspiring yourself with a great spiritual understanding, and meditating makes you the practitioner. So that is my experience, and I share with all of you. So, because sometimes, example, like we call ourselves Buddhist practitioner, we call ourselves a spiritual Dharma practitioner. A beautiful name, beautiful name. But the reality of ourselves is quite lack of certain quality. So, you know, like example, we visualize deity, like deity, or some of you visualize our Lokateshvara. And then we chant a lot. But our mind is somewhere else. Our mind is traveling around the world, and our body is very focused into the Dharma practice, but our mind is traveling around the world. That kind of a practice will never help us any time soon, or any time in the future, or any time in the past either. So I think that, you know, we have to understand how practice works. Because like if you focus on if you're trying to, like an example, like chanting. Chanting is never meant for accumulating and reciting 100 to 1 million. It was never meant for that, the chanting mantra. Chanting mantra is more like a dedication and a guidance for your mind. But how it works nowadays is like everybody has a free mind, our mind is very distracted, but our mouth is not distracted. If that kind of a practice maintains, then of course it will never help us in the future. So understanding the priority, how to practice and way to practice, I think that is really important. Because like, first I thought that chanting a lot will help me a lot. But end of the day, chanting is dedication for you to protect yourself from the distraction so that you can, focus very much into your visualization. So if your mind is distracting, chanting can help you to refocus into what you're visualizing. That's what chanting means. That's what visualization practice means. But what we do nowadays is like we always want to reach a certain limit. We always want to start and finish. That's the problem, big problem. We practice Dharma with I want to start and I want to finish. When you have the idea of the spiritual Dharma practice to be finished, then you are very mistaken. Because Dharma practice and spiritual practice never finishes, long as you're minded. So whole idea of finishing something needs to be stopped any moment, any time, soon. So if we can focus with the I want to start and I want to continue. If you have that kind of a way of thinking about Dharma practice and prayer and practice and for other people, for yourself, then it will help you a lot. But if you have a whole idea and concept about the practice that I must start now, I must finish, I must reach certain number, then everything will go wrong. That is my personal experience. So never make a limit towards your own Dharma practice. Keep it limitless, keep it clear and limitless as possible. And I think that will bring more stability, not just in your path of Dharma, but also in your life. Once our mind is more stable, the life is more stable. If the mind itself is not stable, the life is unstable. So understanding your mind, bringing a stability in your mind is very important. And the life, and the whole reality, the whole meaning of impermanent, it will be stable, it will disappear, and it will dissolve by itself. So understanding and recognizing and maintaining the stability of your mind, and understanding the right concept, the way to practice, I think that is important. Thank you.